This public meeting of the Board of Education's Facilities Improvement and Oversight Committee for January 20th, 2026 is called to order. Good afternoon. Thanks to everyone for being here. And before we get started, I'll share a preview of what's on our agenda today. We'll start with public comment, and we'll move on to bond audit recommendations, our seismic grants, Portland Clean Energy Fund, Community Benefits Fund, 2025 bond procurement schedule, major athletic projects, and future agenda topics and next steps. It's a good one. So let's go ahead. Why don't we introduce ourselves? Up here, I'm Virginia LaForte, Zone 5 Director for the PPS Board.
Michelle Chase Miller, I represent Zone 4.
I'm Michelle DePass, board member for the entire all zones. I represent all zones.
We represent all zones. I'm just, elected out of zone.
Yeah, Patty Sullivan, board member. I'm not really a committee member, but there's a lot on this agenda I wanted to see, so that's why I'm here.
And to staff as well.
Joanna Evenson, Director of Project Management and Construction.
Sarah Norman, Interim Senior Director of Office of School Modernization.
Hello, I'm TJ Hopkins, Program Director with Presidio.
I'm Janice Hansen, District's Internal Auditor. Roseanne Powell, Board Manager.
Tom Archers, Chief of Integrated Operations.
John Franco, Senior Chief Operations.
I'm Jennifer Eggers. I'm with Holmes, a structural engineer.
Hi, Liz Large, contracted.
Excellent. All right, thank you. So next we have public comment. Please make sure when you begin your comments that you clearly state your name and spell your last name. You'll have 2 minutes to speak, and once you hear the alarm go off, please wrap up your comments. We're pretty strict about cutting this off only so everybody has the same amount of time and opportunity to speak. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Kara's gonna look for the list.
Yeah. I'm gonna call 2 at a time. You come up and sit over here where the blue tags are at. Lila Almeida and CJ Watson.
I'm CJ Watson, teacher at Lincoln High School. I've served as the head baseball coach at Lincoln High School for 12 years. I'm here today to help you understand the recent history of Lincoln baseball's use of facilities and why it is crucial this project is completed as soon as possible. Over the last 12 years, Lincoln baseball has practiced in over 23 different locations spread across 5 different cities, which doesn't seem acceptable for a high school baseball program. Those 5 cities include Portland, Hillsborough, Beaverton, Milwaukee, and even crossing the bridge to Vancouver, Washington. All 3 levels of our baseball program play and practice off campus. Our games have to start at 4 p.m. because our city park permits only run until 6 p.m. This causes all of our baseball players to get early release up to 3 times per week, even for home games. Our freshman baseball team last year missed a combined 19.5 hours of school to get out for their home games and away games throughout the year. Our JV and varsity missed even more. This is too much class time for students to be missing. We are given Gabriel Park as our home field, which is located in the Ida B. Wells boundary 15 minutes away from our high school. Gabriel Park baseball fields are not fenced in, causing the local community to allow their dogs to run freely, leave their droppings on the field, children to ride their bikes on the infield. Mole holes have completely taken over the outfield, leaving hazards all over. There are no fences. There are no fences for dugouts, leaving just a bench on either side. This is the same setup you would see at a T-ball game. This is not an acceptable baseball field for us to be playing at, especially when you consider the varsity level and you look at our surrounding suburban schools. This is one of the reasons why we're losing kids is our facilities. There are no bullpen mounts for our pitchers to warm up, and there's just not a lot of pride when our kids show up at these fields. We rent out Hillsborough Stadium for our home games, so we can assure to get played games and have somewhere for our kids to feel important, which costs us over $7,000 per year. Our community deserves a clear and concise timeline on when this is going to be completed. Thank you.
Good
Good afternoon. My name is Lila Almeida, ALMEIDA, and I'm a student athlete at Lincoln High School, representing our softball team. We want to thank the board for the plan to build fields at West Sylvan. We know it is the right solution. However, I am here to ask you to view that project with a new sense of urgency. Currently, despite our school's best efforts, Lincoln's softball and baseball teams are in a logistics crisis. The baseball team travels 21 miles just to find playable ground at Hillsborough Stadium. My team is similarly trapped. Hamilton Park is unplayable most of the time due to mud. Delta Park is so far that we must miss valuable class time just to make start times. This leaves Wallace Park as our only option. While we are thankful for it, relying on a public park creates safety risks no student should face. Last season, a man followed our assistant coach while shouting the N-word at her. He then turned that abuse toward my mother and me, forcing us to flee while our head coach tried to help. We also faced sexually inappropriate comments from bystanders, some even directed at middle school students. I want to be clear, our coaches and AD are incredible. They do everything to protect us, but they should be allowed to coach, not act as security guards. We are seeing a historic rise in support for female sports. It is vital to show that young ladies that our safety and education are priorities. We know the fields at West Sylvan are coming one day, but given the safety challenges and the logistical strain, we respectfully ask for an accelerated timeline. We are eager for a home where we can focus entirely on our development, not our safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim Borsham and Afton Wilcox.
Hi, my name is Kim Worsham, Worsham. I am a parent, a business professional, and currently a CTE business teacher at Lincoln High School. In addition, I have been part of Lincoln's baseball program for 15 years. The iconic quote, "If you build it, they will come," came from the movie Field of Dreams. The phrase became a popular idiom for the idea that creating a quality product or experience will naturally draw people to it. In business, you are always trying to balance keeping stakeholders happy and generating revenue. We currently have a Portland problem with both, keeping Multnomah taxpayers in the city while stabilizing the number of students in PPS. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just use our public fields as marketing for the families we want to keep and attract to PPS and PDX? The 2025 bond listed West Sylvan Middle School's field as one of the athletic projects. Did you know that in 2017, we also passed a bond that listed West Sylvan as an athletic project, and we actually received conditional approval by the city of Beaverton in March 2020, but we let it expire. We also had another review in November 2021 with no luck. Now, another 5 years later, we are putting together schedules that have increased cost and timelines that push anything from happening out another 2 to 3 years, 8 years later. For everyone in PPS's sake, how can we focus our city and oversight and accountability committees to prioritizing and getting the jobs done more efficiently? Now, time is of the essence, and while our city, county, and district struggle, we need to all rally around the goal of getting the athletic fields completed ASAP. With design proposals due as late as June 2026, how do we ensure that it's not just a dream that will never come true? We can plan, approve, and build entire high-tech manufacturing plants in Washington County in a few years, but we can't put lights on an existing field or turf on a field that's designed and permitted that was already approved 6 years ago. To all stakeholders, please do the right thing. Consider the weather and the B&W. Engage the right people, proactively work with the city, focus consultants, and get things done in the most efficient manner possible before it's too late. I'm assuming we all love PDX, and we need to act now for PPS and our city. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Pause.
Yeah.
Just coffee. Oh, God. Deliver some water to us.
Right. Same.
It's going around. Just did that.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's go ahead and we can keep moving.
My name is Afton Wilcox, Wilcox. Do I just begin?
Yes, please.
Yes. I want to start off on a good note. I'm really encouraged by the community engagement and decisive action that PPS took in the sunsetting process with Jefferson. In the midst of all of this absolute terror, thank you for getting something done in Portland, something meaningful in a move towards equity and action and not just words. I also want to extend my gratitude to Safe Structures PPS, whose tireless efforts contributed to getting the 2025 bond measure passed. I know there's a real fear that children's lives are in danger, and I would ask everyone in this room, is this the first time you've felt that kind of fear? What would it be like to feel that fear every day in any building, in every building? We need to confront uncomfortable truths about the current system of white body supremacy. This shouldn't be radical or revolutionary in a city that claims to be progressive. I'm not from Portland. I'm from Florida, and lots of folks like to make jokes about that, myself included. I thought when I moved out here I would learn so much about being progressive, open-minded, and welcoming. But like many places, Portland is still very much segregated, and PPS is no exception. I've been doing a lot of learning these past few years, and I ask you all to be open to learning together. Back to facilities. I expected the formula would get tweaked again, and instead you're moving forward with a formula that is completely tone deaf. I don't know if you're rushing the process to receive your grant dollars, but all the funds in question and allocation thereof need to clearly and transparently address meaningful retrofits, save the most lives, provide disaster resources to communities that don't get retrofits. Here is my official request for the public record showing the models used to arrive at the current prioritization formula. I shouldn't have to go through bureaucratic channels to make the same request. I'd also like to state that prioritization decisions absolutely should not move forward until community engagement around school consolidations begins in spring of 2027. Unreinforced masonry and other high-risk buildings should be considered for consolidation. As we move forward reintroducing equity into the formula, I want to remind us that all kids deserve to feel safe, loved, seen, like they matter. All kids deserve to be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole Kemper.
Chair LaForte and Vice Chair DePass and Director Chase Miller. My name is Nicole Kemper, Kemper, and I serve on the Lincoln Youth Baseball Board of Directors. I'm here to tell you about the kids in our youth program because they are the ones who dream about playing on the fields at West Sylvan that your committee has the power to accelerate. I'll start by noting that Lincoln Youth Baseball families don't just come from the hills above Lincoln. They live in apartments on downtown blocks and in the rural areas up around Skyline. Every child who wants to play does, no matter if they can pay the registration fee or not. But let me get to the more important point for today, which is about our kids' connection to the fields that they play on. Not many are aware that our youth league maintains the majority of fields that they play on. The coaches and players are the ones who pull the weeds, repair the surfaces after heavy rain, and donate the equipment and material to level fields for safe play. Lincoln Youth Baseball players know that the first practice of the season starts with pulling weeds because they know that no one else is going to do it for them. These kids come out for field improvement days that start at 8 a.m., even this last weekend when the temperatures were in the mid-30s. They write thank you letters to the donors who support them in our annual hit-a-thon. They design their community middle school projects to raise money for their fields because they know that they don't match the conditions of the leagues that we play to our north, south, east, and west, even within the PPS boundary.
They write essays in class about the baseball community that they've grown up in, that's taught them to accept pride in wins and accept defeat with grace. Their coaches tell them, leave it all on the field, and they really do, because they know that baseball happens in our league from the ground up.
It's very dramatic music.
I know, it took me a minute to realize what was happening.
I was hoping it would come at the front.
Maybe like a couple more sentences, that's fine.
So I wanted to share all this because PPS and our West Sylvan neighbors should feel good about supporting fields for kids who have learned the hard lesson to put in work for the things that they care about. And it is on their behalf that I urge the committee to finish Lincoln's modernization program and not delay this voter-approved project. Thank you for your time today, and I offer Lincoln Youth Baseball's ongoing partnership as an advocate and good neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that everyone, Kara?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's see. So our first topic tonight is review of our bond audit recommendations. Dr. Franco, would you like to introduce the topic?
Sure. Thank you for this. So we started out this last month with a review of 3 audit recommendations. And I think consistently try and stick to that piece. And so we're going to review 2 today. I'll turn it over to both Sarah and TJ. Am I running the?
Here you go.
Okay. That'd be great.
It's a different presentation.
It is, right?
This is the auditors.
Oh, no, this is the wrong one.
Set.
Janice's presentation.
Oh,
Oh,
did you want to?
Introduce Janice.
yes.
Do we want
sure,
to do
sorry.
Genesis first?
Let's do it. So not you and then, sorry, it's not in here. So yeah, let's go ahead. Sorry, I'm following the script. Janice, we would love to hear from you and hear, thanks for spending time on this and hear your recommendations.
All right. Thank you guys so much for letting me come and talk to you guys a little bit about the Bond Accountability Charter. What I would like to do is just kind of go over some background information with you to help understand how did we get here and kind of what is the recommendations from the contracted external bond performance auditors related to the Bond Accountability Charter. And I'll give you guys some suggestions to think about as you guys go through the updating of the Bond Accountability Charter. Okay. So some background information here. The PPS's bond ballot measure includes a paragraph on oversight and accountability. It says an independent group of community members will review quarterly reports and audits of how the bond dollars are being spent and provide accountability to the public until construction is completed. So that independent group of community members, that is our BAC, the Bond Accountability Committee. And the audits that are being referenced there are performed annually by our contracted independent bond performance auditors. So to start thinking about, so just a little bit of background about what is the Bond Accountability It's an advisory committee to the PPS board. The roles and responsibilities and committee charges are detailed in the BAC charter. The charter is approved by the board, and members of the BAC are appointed by the board. So I kind of threw in like what's the purpose of a charter to start thinking about as you work through your way in updating the charter. So the external bond performance auditors in their year 6 bond performance audit, which was issued in June of 2025, they made a recommendation to revisit how best to use the BAC and strengthen the committee's roles and involvement in oversight to enhance the bond program and project delivery through BAC's technical feedback and insights on project details. And then it goes on to talk about what could that include. So there's like a couple of the things they're talking about is, providing detailed schedules with a critical path or project priority criteria for review. And then in addition to involving the BAC with the annual bond performance audits. So your charge, my hope for you guys tonight is to walk through the BAC charter and revisit that charter and make some updates that you feel are appropriate. In addition to the primary recommendation that I showed on the last slide, there are 3 additional recommendations to kind of keep in mind as you look through the charter. These are really recommendations that I think the BAC would probably want to have direct impact on kind of putting that into it. So for example, work with the BAC to establish protocols for voting and formalizing any relevant recommendations. So our practice is the BAC chairperson likes to provide the board with their BAC quarterly report in person or online, but directly to the board. How would that recommendation be implemented into the actual charter? It could be updated just to say just that the chairperson will provide the quarterly report to the board in one of their regular meetings. And then ensure written BAC minutes include a bunch of information there. And, for the part that talks about distributing materials at least 12 days in advance, I don't even think board members get their packets 12 days in advance. So, yes, that is what the recommendation says, but I think that communication with the BAC members to better understand what their timely needs are, maybe something around 7 days might be more realistic, but again, I think you would need to get some input from the BAC members on how many days in advance that they really need the materials to ensure that they're prepared. And then also, I would recommend, or I'm suggesting that you would consider adding requests for information or documentation from the BAC should be clearly documented in the meeting minutes. One of the things that I did in preparation to talk to you guys is I went back and I watched quite a few BAC meetings, and it was really hard to follow the meetings one to the next. Sometimes BAC members were asking for information or documentation about a specific thing, and then I didn't necessarily see that pop up in the next committee meeting. And I'm wondering if, because right now they're only meeting quarterly, it's kind of hard to reflect back a quarter later and remember all the things that they wanted. So I really think that anytime the BAC members are asking for documentation or a specific set of information, that should be clearly documented in their meeting minutes. And then to formalize the BAC recruiting and application process. So when a vacancy occurs, it can get filled as soon as possible to maintain full membership. And I believe that Director DePass worked on the recruiting a couple years back to try to diversify it. So I know that we have a process that has been talked about in the past, but the recommendation is to formalize it. And by formalizing it, it kind of just means write it down. So those recruiting practices could be written right into the charter, or could be in the form of like a post on the BAC's website that shows what the recruiting process is. Okay, so I also kind of came up with some suggestions on things that I thought you might want to take into consideration as you work to go through the BAC charter. So the first suggestion is to ask the BAC members for suggestions on what the committee charges they think would be most appropriate. I really do think that for the charter to be the best, it is a collaboration between the BAC members and the board. So the board is able to clearly communicate what types of advice that they're looking for. And then in collaboration with BAC members, talking about what types of advice they would like to give to the board members. And then I would also suggest any changes to the BAC charter that you just give them to the BAC committee and have them go through and review them and approve them before finalizing. So I would also suggest increasing the BAC membership to include members with experience related to technology and curriculum. In the 2020 bonds and also in the 2025 bonds, there is a group of funds specifically identified for technology and curriculum. And currently the BAC membership, the charter doesn't ask for those type of skills and expertise. It lists a lot of other expertise, but nothing related to curriculum and technology. And I really think that the BAC membership is lacking those types of experience. So I would really like to see you guys update or increase the BAC membership to include at least one person with technology and one person with curriculum. And I thought about, what that might look like for somebody who has curriculum experience, and perhaps, maybe they don't want to sit through all the BAC materials about the other things. So I think but they really want to give their advice related to curriculum. So I just, there's some ways to maybe invite them on meetings whenever they're going to present on technology and curriculum. But again, that's something that can be talked through with BAC members. I would also suggest increasing the BAC meeting frequency. Right now, they're meeting quarterly. And, in the last year, it seems like they're presenting one meeting, they're getting updates on the major modernization projects, and then in the next meeting, they're getting updates on everything else. And if you think about that, that means that really only 2 times a year, the BAC members are getting updates on our big modernization projects. And one of the things I just wanted to make note of is as we roll into the next couple years, having 3 major modernization projects going on kind of at the same time is a lot, and I really think it would make sense to increase that frequency. I would suggest a minimum of 6 meetings a year. But again, feedback from the BAC would be helpful, but increasing that would really make getting through the materials and all of the projects that we have a little bit easier, and maybe make the meetings a little less short, or I mean less long, so they'd be a little shorter but meet more frequency. A couple more suggestions is to revisit the following statement. The committee may request additional documents and provide advice to PPS staff on topics agreed upon by the committee and PPS staff. So when I look at this line that's currently in the charter, it kind of throws me off because it's providing advice to the PPS staff. And this is really a board advisory committee. So it's certainly okay to have the BAC provide advice to PPS staff as well. It's just kind of out of place potentially, and really when it says may request additional documents, the use of the term may is difficult to say. Like, how does that actually work? You know, maybe they request something and maybe we provide it. I'm not sure. So I would really revisit that statement. Make sure that you're asking for advice to the board, because it's a board advisory committee, or clearly distinguishing what types of advice that the BAC could be providing to staff. I would also suggest consider adding a mission statement. Just really missing a mission statement. I think it would really help to clarify what the board is trying to achieve by this advisory committee. I would also suggest revisiting this statement. One of the bullet points in the charter is topics and scope for the annual performance audit work plan. So currently what happens pretty consistently over the last few years, the bond auditors will provide staff a list of a proposed audit plan. And that can include a lot of different things, but then in collaboration with the contract manager, the PPS staffer, who is the contract manager, and in the past that was the director of OSM, and so that contract manager had the ability to kind of go in and say, yes, I would like this scope included in this year's audit, but they could also say, no, maybe I don't want this scope included in this year's audit. And performance audits are definitely different than financial audits, but it would kind of be like our financial statement auditors asking our CFO if they wanted us to cover the auditors to do payroll. You know, like, those are not really the types of questions that financial auditors present to like the CFO to decide on what the scope of the audit is. So I would really like to see the scope of the audit be recommended by the BAC. So that's why I would like to see it kind of in the charter, that the scope is presented to the BAC, and then the BAC can make a recommendation to the board on what scope they would like included in the annual bond performance audits. I also was hoping...
May I ask a question really quick? So on the scope of work, currently, who determines the scope for the audit? And I think you might have covered that while I was reading.
No, that's okay. So it's kind of a long process, but typically what happens is auditors will meet with a variety of stakeholders
External auditors.
Yep, the external auditors will meet with a variety of stakeholders. So they meet with board members, they meet with OSM staff, they meet with me, they probably meet with BAC members. And what they're meeting with everyone for is to try to gain an understanding of what risks are present, what are the most significant risks to consider in that year's scope. So what they'll do is they'll put together a proposal, and the proposal could have 5 objectives or 2 objectives. It just depends on the feedback and what they hear. Once that proposal is created, they send that to the contract PPS's staff person, who's the contract manager for their contract, and that person gets to review the scope and make decisions on what's included and what's not included. Did I answer your question?
Is that a contract manager, and is that also someone in management at OSM? Is that executive level? Like who approves what the topics are that are being audited? Who's the final decision?
The final decision maker in the past was the senior director of OSM. And so I think that kind of, with our new staff, I think that falls to Sarah. But I don't know, or potentially TJ, but so that would be the decision maker.
Yeah, it would be me.
That's what I was trying to get at.
It's going to be me, and I think one of the big pieces with this is that they also seek feedback before they go out in terms of what we would like them to look at, right? And then they go out and they talk to a bunch of people, and then they list what their suggestions potentially would be, and then we ultimately can determine what we accept or don't accept moving forward.
Okay, that was the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, so as you guys are thinking about what types of charges you may want to consider for the BAC charter update, I just wanted to draw your attention to some recent public testimony that seems to indicate a request for the board to provide increased oversight around the bond seismic funds. So something like that could be added to the BAC charter to ask them to provide the board with some advice as it relates to our bond seismic projects. I would also suggest revisiting the use of the term may in the charter to kind of clarify in what situations it can occur. I think that the term may is just not very clear. So it could happen or it could not happen. And anytime that is in the charter, I find that it's just not clear about what's expected for each roles and responsibilities. So as you see the term may in the charter, just think about what does that actually mean? What would you expect in what situations? And try to tighten up that language a little bit to clarify. Then I would also suggest adding a charge to the BAC to monitor and report to the board on the KPIs, key performance indicators, established in the comprehensive management plan that is referenced in the Presidio contract. So in the contract, it says within 90 days, there will be a comprehensive management plan that outlines a variety, a whole long list of things. But from that comprehensive management plan, I would suggest providing that to the BAC and asking them to pull from that specific key performance indicators that they could monitor and report to the board on for that. And I feel strongly about the audit scope. So apparently I put that in there twice. Sorry about that. But I didn't mean to put it in there twice, but it is important to try to make sure that the scope of the audit is recommended by the BAC or some other way of doing it. And then in a staff report provided to the policy committee a couple months ago, there was a statement in there that said the BAC closely monitors increases in bond-funded contracts. And as I followed the BAC meetings, I didn't really see how they were closely monitoring increases in bond funding contracts. So I would just suggest formalizing that. If that is currently the practice, I think it should be in the BAC charter. Or if it's not the practice, then everybody should be on the same page about what the BAC does and does not monitor. So if in fact they're not closely monitoring increases in bond funding contracts, that's okay, as long as staff understand that that is not what's happening. So just being clear and concise about what is and is not really considered a BAC charge. So I just wanted to give a kind of wrap up, a reminder that the advice provided by the BAC, it's for the board. The BAC charter can be updated to reflect the monitoring, oversight, and accountability measures you want to see. And the BAC reports can include the advice you need to inform your decision making around the bonds. And if what you want or need from the BAC does not fall neatly within a charter, the board could pass a resolution identifying specific advice requests and monitoring or oversight and accountability responsibilities for the BAC. You guys have any questions?
I have a lot of questions, but I don't want to go first.
First?
I said I don't want to go first. I would go second or third. I want to hear what else is, what other people are thinking. I have a small list.
I just have a comment. I just wanted to thank you for your time and these suggestions. I feel like this is exactly the kind of conversation that we should be having before the board agrees on updates to the new charter. It's really important because the BAC is part of the language and the bond referrals. So this isn't something you're just doing, we're required to do this. So I love the detail. I love the suggestions. I was wondering what role, maybe you know this. So I guess we kind of covered it. Who ultimately decides the scope of the audit? Like at any point, does that come to the board to approve the scope of the audit, or does it just come to us?
No.
Okay.
It's just provided, I mean, the contract manager for the contract with our external bond performance auditor could certainly seek out a variety of input to help make that decision about what scope would be included in that year. There's nothing that would prevent them from reaching out and saying, hey, this is what we were thinking. Does this make sense to you guys? But the way it is written right now, it's just not clear.
Okay. And then in terms of facilitating the process for the BAC to give their input on the charter, is that something that, Christy is, Director Split's the board liaison to the committee. Would she facilitate that?
So I did chat with Director Split last week, and they were planning to have an agenda setting meeting for the next BAC meeting, and I think that's been rescheduled. So she wasn't able to attend that meeting, but she suggested I go and try to provide some input, which I'm willing to do at any point if it gets rescheduled, or yes. The short answer is yes, if Director Split is available It is certainly my hope that she will communicate back and forth with the chair of the BAC to try to talk through what that might look like. Ultimately, it's the BAC is the board's advisory committee, so any changes will have to be approved by the full board. So my hope is that tonight you guys will start on the process and make some suggestions and talk through them, and then refer from your committee today, when you're done talking about it, to the draft to the BAC so they can talk about it in their next meeting, which I may or may not be towards the end of this month. I'm not sure it's been scheduled quite yet, but I know that it's getting close to that time of kind of scheduling that meeting. So once the BAC goes through all the edits and suggestions from this committee, they can add to it, make notes, and then refer it to the full board for review and approval. And I know that today it's just the committee members, so there may be additional input from your other board colleagues. And I don't know exactly how to kind of work that through, but it might be a situation where when the charter comes back from the BAC, that it could be an agenda item for the board to talk about. But that's for you guys to decide. But ultimately, all the edits will have to be approved by the full board before they're finalized.
And just from a process perspective, I think that's, one of the facilitation, I think, of the charter piece, I think is in conjunction with staff as well in terms of the facilitation. I mean, it's not something we would expect directors to just go in and facilitate, this piece. But at the same time, it's going to be the BAC's. I mean, it's your committee ultimately, and we have a BAC rep. But I think Greg's actually here, who's going to be participating in that conversation. I don't want to call you, but that's in conjunction. That's in partnership with staff in terms of the facilitation.
So my questions have to do, I have a questions high level and very detailed. The first one is, again, that I think this work should be directed by Dr. Franco and Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
This is wildly different from anything that we've talked about before in the years I've been here. This work should be originating at that level. I'm really curious on recommendation 19. I'd like to hear from the folks actually managing projects what the BAC can do to add value. I know I've worked with the BAC, and I did establish I thought a really nice recruitment several years ago that resulted in people under 40, women, and actually women of color on the committee, and I was really proud of that work. But right now what I'm hearing seems duplicative of work that other people are doing, and in a season where we're going to be making quite a few cuts, $50 million to be exact, I'm really concerned about putting more demands on staff, and we'll have actually less staff, and we'll have committee members I need to have this, and we're going to have fewer people to do the work. So I'd really like to hear from the folks actually doing the management, because we need their buy-in, what it is that the BAC can do to add value to this. Again, the ultimate responsibility is with the superintendent. That is ultimate. But so that also on the recommendation 20, 12 days in advance is unreasonable. Even including the charter that we've received, we didn't have that. We got that 2 days or yesterday, I think. Anyway. I was curious about there's a detail about transcription and notes and adding attendance, and I think attendance is taken, as far as I'm concerned, who's there, who's excused absence. I don't know the detail of of that, but I'm thinking, okay, well, now that's a staff person that's going to be taking notes, or we use Mr. AI or Ms. AI. Because the BAC is an advisory committee, I would not want to add more meetings. The cadence is about quarterly right now. I would like to hear from them if they want to meet more and just hang out more together, at 2 meetings. I do agree with formalizing the recruitment application process. I think that would be great to write that down, and, you know, the results spoke for themselves. I don't know where we're at with the committee members, but I think we could write that down and replicate that. My biggest question is kind of where the line's drawn between the BAC, which is an advisory committee, to the board, not to staff. I also have concerns about adding the seismic language into the charter, where we do need to assure that the seismic work gets done, and we need to ensure all of the work gets done. There's a lot of work. Nothing's more important in terms of, there's not a hierarchy of work. There's plenty of work that needs to be done. It's all important, but we wouldn't want to put all of that work into the charter because it's just too much.
And I'll just note, Director DePass, in the existing charter, there is a reference to seismic. It's in the work that the committee may engage in.
Okay.
And it includes references to seismic. So there's Janice and I have met a couple times about how to think about the governance level articulation in a charter versus specific tasks. And that's the kind of leveling to think about. You want the charter to be clear and to provide guidance about what's expected of the committee, you know, what its scope is, how it does its work. And with some level of detail, enough to provide guidance, I mean, how they do that work. But if it gets so prescriptive that it needs to be updated all the time, it's probably too specific. So we're trying to find that balance in these issues. So anyway,
I'd like it to be higher level, I guess, more, you know, it's a volunteer committee that advises the board. It's not staff. And so I'd like to see it, I agree, it needs to be clear. It needs to be not updated every 6 months. And it needs to be perhaps less specific, less prescriptive. I also, again, want to assure that we're not duplicating work in a time when we're going to be shorter on staff than we are today. So,
how do you see? I'm just curious. Like, what do you find duplicative in what you heard today?
Let's see. Well, so on year 6 recommendation number 19, work with the BAC to establish protocols for voting and formalizing any relevant recommended advice that can be presented in BAC quarterly reports or to the board or provided in real time. I want to know how that would differ from what the staff reports that we regularly receive as a full board. For instance, how are we, again, with a constrained workforce? I'm just curious if there's already a responsibility that's happening in OSM, I wouldn't want to see it duplicated on the BAC. I don't think they need to be working on the same things at the same time.
Well, the BAC report to the board is something different than a staff report.
It is.
They're doing, so it's not really a staff responsibility to draft that. I think that the chair drafts it. I'm not sure.
Well, that's what I want to clarify, though, because right now it looks like we're going to be getting a report, two reports about the same thing. So my concern is just efficiency, basically.
And I will say that the pieces around we're streamlining processes, so the level of updates, you're going to get consistent updates to the board, which a lot of the times is going to be information that we have shared with the BAC, right? So there is a level of duplicity.
Duplication.
Duplication. Not
Right?
duplication.
Not duplicity.
Yes, duplication.
Very
So how does the information flow then? Is it coming from staff to the BAC?
Correct. Staff gives a report to the BAC on various agenda topics, to which then, since the quarterly reports, they would provide a summary then update to the board, which Kara has provided. I think Kara provided both times, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess, and also too, that's on top of the updates that we were giving at every regular session.
Right. Okay.
I was just gonna put this in context for everyone on the amount of reporting that the bond program does to all of the different committees and entities that we do it to. On a monthly basis, we report to the FIO and the BOE. On a quarterly basis, we report to the BAC. We sometimes report to the BOE twice a month if we are on the regularly scheduled board meeting, and then if we are scheduled again in the working session. All of everything that is reported from staff is done with staff. And ultimately, the agenda setting, the reports that we go through on a quarterly basis with the BAC, which they do see the variances within the contracts and how the money is spent, that is done on a quarterly basis. The agenda setting thus far, I've only had one BAC meeting with the BAC committee thus far, just because of where we fell within the year. The cadence of those meetings was that one quarter that the bond program will report on the modernizations and CBSE, and the next quarterly meeting would be on all consolidated projects. So everything outside of the modernization and CBSE, that would be the next agenda item. So that may be where some of your following confusion may come from, because it doesn't go, because then we pick up on the modernization and CBSE in the following quarter meeting. You guys have already said it. It's an advisory committee made up of volunteers. All of them have construction, design, engineering, public sector, private sector. Their resumes are on our website. I also want to draw our attention to our website and the public notices that we deliver, the meeting minutes that are captured there. That also lives on the BAC, the portion of our PPS website for anyone that would want to know what is going on with the BAC. It is there. So I just wanted to kind of draw attention to that as well. So, but just so you know, like, we are reporting, we're doing a bond report on almost a weekly basis.
Great.
Just
thank you.
Yeah.
So Liz and I met to try to figure out what is it actually going to look like. How can we talk through this in this committee meeting? And so I was trying to work on the charter, and other people were too. And we just kind of decided, I'll just make a bunch of suggestions, and you guys can think about them, and then kind of relay which suggestions that you would like to update the charter with, and potentially Liz or somebody else could take a swing at incorporating them to some extent. But I'm just making suggestions for your consideration as it relates to the BAC charter, based off of just my own monitoring of what I see going on, and listening to kind of public testimony and things that I've heard the public ask for also.
And I think, the ultimate question is, what does the board want from the BAC? And the charter should make that role clear. What is helpful in that advisory role to the board? And in my job is to take what you want and get it into governance language into this document. What you have is the first draft, that is the first stab at the audit recommendation, most of the audit recommendations, and some other pieces that jumped out. Some of Janice's suggestion, technology and curriculum being, one of the experience categories we consider. But it's the start of the conversation, and the ultimate decision is what is helpful to the board. And I think thinking about this flow of information from these different channels, BAC comes from a different lens than staff, but how will you use that? How do you get the most yield out of that volunteer time that advances the oversight of the body?
It seems like their original charter was literally to report back that bond dollars were being spent as intended. That was it. Was very cut and dry. It wasn't, and they're all professionals. They're amazing professionals. I was so lucky to work with people that spoke some of the similar language. So I think framing it in terms of what's helpful to the board is interesting. I mean, I would be in favor of making it more simple and not, and less detailed. I really liked that they were like, no, you can't spend it on this. Voters voted for X. We need to produce X. That seems pretty cut and dry. And they did that very well. And they do that very well.
I agree with your comment about spending. I sent some feedback about mirroring the ballot language, which says no independent group of community members an independent group of community members will review quarterly reports and audits of how the bond dollars are being spent to provide accountability to the public until construction is completed. That I support the idea of getting the spending language back into the charter because it's not quite there right now.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to hear from the committee about how often they would like to meet, because it is a different report.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if it would be more efficient to have 6 meetings for them because it's not just such a huge chunk of work. And I think from the board perspective, we'd only be hearing about their feedback on the consolidated projects twice a year, which feels like we'd be a little bit behind. I feel like I'd be hearing about everything after the fact, so I would be very interested in hearing their feedback. And I also, in terms of I kind of look at it as a scope of work in the charter, so I like specificity. So that we know exactly, they know exactly what we need them to cover off on. So that's my point of view.
Also, I just want to remind, so these suggestions are not, they're just your suggestions as someone that looks at this stuff. They're not, written in stone necessarily. They're a person's ideas about what should be included.
Is that right, or are
There's
the recommendations what
recommendations
the
from the
auditors?
auditors.
The auditors suggested those.
But
Yeah.
there's 2 sets of recommendations. There's the little yellow boxes, recommendations. Those are from,
Suggestions are mine.
they're yours,
The
and the
recommendations that are
year
written
and the
out
recommendation
are from the bond auditor.
straight from the bond audit. So there are 2 separate, one was from the bond audit, one group, the other group is just from the Office of Internal Auditor.
So
Which is just so everybody knows, the board has 2 employees. One is the superintendent and one is the Office of Internal Auditor. So we're actually your managers.
So those are the ones from the.
These are ones from the bond audit,
Yep.
yes. The other ones are just suggestions for consideration. And again, the public testimony is always, by advisement, because we have people coming in, testifying on a range of things. That I think our job is to listen to that and to take it under consideration, but not necessarily adopt everything we hear, because otherwise we wouldn't have a ship that is this tight. But I think, we want to take public testimony under advisement.
And one of the most important things for me is that it mirrors our ballot language and our referral language. So the project is called out, that it's included.
Do we need to, so the referral language is, that's the referral language, do we?
It says that we'll
Liz,
have a committee that does this.
Do we have to mirror,
I think so, because it's part of the referral.
well, I was
that we'll
asking
have.
our lawyer if she thought.
Well, that's a
maybe
public
that's-
representation of what the bond account committee will do. I don't know, that's a technical legal requirement that the exact language be in the charter. Certainly
That's
want
what I
the
was
charter to
asking.
reflect that there's consistency
sentiment.
between the two. And it doesn't hurt to put it in there either. I mean, I just leave it up to there's that is the you want to make sure that the committee is fulfilling the representation and the commitment made to consumers. That can be done in a number of ways, but that's the outcome we want through the language you suggest.
Sorry, just one more thing. I wanted to mention that typically recommendations from auditors are reviewed and discussed in the audit committee. And one of the reasons why, like myself and Patty are here today, is because we didn't want to have one more committee to add to the agenda for staff to report to the audit committee about these things. So we are trying to go where the staff are already here and all the expertise are already in this committee. So we were super mindful of trying to cut down on the amount of different committees that need to be reported to where we can. And so just FYI, like typically we would talk about audit committee recommendations in the audit committee, but in an attempt to try and reduce the number of committees, we're trying to come to the committee where the recommendation can be talked about.
So it makes sense for us to give I'm trying to figure out like how it's wired, our individual recommendations to the audit committee before it comes to the board, or are we having like a larger discussion as a board about this?
My understanding, board can decide how it wants to handle it. My understanding is it was coming here.
Right.
It was going to the BAC for review, to provide feedback back to this committee, and then it would. That's not because that's a legally required path. That's my understanding. That was the path since the work is being done here.
Because I can tell we have a couple of differences of opinion, so I'm not sure if we would make a recommendation as a group and figure out how to do this.
Well, as the next step, it needs to go to the bond. Well, I think we have a draft in front of us that hopefully, I would like to add some edits to it. I mean, I like the red lines generally. I've skimmed them. I haven't read them, but I skimmed them in between work and work. I like them generally. I would like to add some just commentary to that document.
You want to talk through it?
Well, I'd like to write it because I'm a better writer than a speaker. I don't know that I would get it done today, but I can prioritize it, absolutely.
I think looking at time also, maybe it would be helpful to sit with the drafts, add anything want to add to it, and then either take the conversation back. I mean, maybe
could we do a parallel where we have time to sit with the draft and the BAC has time to provide some input at the same time? We don't have to.
So
looking at bond accountability, the
So
BAC member I see sitting in the back here.
Yeah, so our next meeting is scheduled for the 28th. Our BAC meeting is scheduled
It's a big
for
day.
January
It is.
January 28th.
Candace?
5:30 to 8:30. It's out there.
I will not be there.
I won't be here. 3 of us in the room have a birthday that
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. It's a big
and our
day.
CFO as well.
It's a big day. But yeah, that's
I think we'll all be
currently,
absent.
that's the current BAC quarterly meeting is currently scheduled
Okay.
for that day.
So that's the 28th at 5:30?
It's an in-person meeting this time. We also alternate whether they're in person or virtual. And this meeting is at Jefferson High School.
Yes, go demos.
So maybe what we do is have.
Got a former, you're right. I mean, of Jefferson?
No, I wish I.
Okay. Did you work at Jefferson at all, or? Okay, you just love the demos.
And all athletics.
So for the BAC meeting next Wednesday, it sounds like not everyone's going to be able to have an opportunity to submit our thoughts to the committee.
Yes.
In advance.
Or does it go through Christie?
Great question. That might make.
I think you want to send them like
Okay,
can
to
send them
you.
legal, I'm a legal assigned attorney to the BAC also.
Okay.
I can
Okay.
take those, incorporate them, so they have the options, the materials, Janice's recommendations. And then
Okay.
we can get that together if you send them to me, and that avoids the creation of
Serial
meeting.
That's exactly what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we send them to you, that avoids that, and they'll make their way to the BAC?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you for all of your work on this. It's more prepared for the next couple of weeks. Update the charter, so, it's a little clunky, but I love that we're having this conversation before and not during after, so thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so, thank you, Janice, thank you, Dr. Franco. So, let's see.
Here.
Next, we have please take it from the top with
Yeah.
presentation and walk through.
If that's
4
okay.
through 7, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 5 things to provide some updates on, as you can see here. We do have 2 bond audit recommendations that we're asked to provide updates on, so we'll give some progress checks on that. Also, Jennifer Eggers is here from Home Structures. We could talk a little bit about where we're at in regards to our grants for the seismic. Also, Tom is going to provide us an update on PSEF funds, where we're at with that process. Also, TJ then is going to talk through kind of, so you can see our bond procurement schedule, which will give you a better idea too. And that will lead also into kind of that next topic around major athletics.
And Dr. Brown, just
Yes.
a point of clarification, in the interest of time, and that we just talked about the bond audit recommendations, do you want to jump to the next?
We move forward?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
great.
Chair.
It's the chair's
Chair.
decision.
Good suggestion.
Nice.
Well, they're different. The
Oh, some of the ones unrelated to the charter.
Yeah, unrelated to the charter.
Unrelated to the charter,
So-
sorry, yes.
Slide the year 6 recommendation number 5, the written plan and methodology for allocating contingency funds.
Yes, so we'll
Yeah, sorry.
move to this one, and I'll turn it over to Sarah to kind of talk through this. But this one is, the recommendation was to develop and formulate a plan or methodology for allocating bond contingency funds, including identifying how project savings will be assigned to other bond projects or returned to the 2017 program contingency fund. So, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, again, these are this is the 2020 bond program, and it was a recommendation made by them, and we're currently working through trying to reconcile the 2012, 2017, and 2020 bond. And so we kind of wrote a paragraph about how if there is recognized savings within, or it goes into a contingency, and then we go back to the bond language to make sure that we have fulfilled everything that was requested in the 2012, 2017 bond program. And if that truly is, at that point, if it truly is savings, then are we moving that forward into the next bond? What are we doing with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what we have been doing in some of the bond programs, we've got kind of seismic that's been in a few, right? And so some of that savings has been identified to go into a seismic because it sticks with the bond language within that bond program, and there's a need. And so re-roofing is a good example as well. We had roofing in a couple of bond programs, and we could only touch so many. And so then we recognized some savings. And so because that was part of that bond program language, we added additional re-roofing projects to that bond program at a later date. And so that's kind of how it has been working. And it does, I agree, it needs to be formalized, it needs to be written down, it needs to be all of those things. And we're in the process of working through that and making sure that that happens moving forward.
Excellent. Sounds like an improvement over our practice.
We're working.
So if something's on the 2020 bond, does the contingency in any savings stay within that program?
It stays
And is
within that bond
It's
program.
spent within that.
It's spent within that bond program, right? So whatever language is associated with that bond program, that is whatever contingency or whatever savings we find in there, that's what it can be spent on.
Okay.
So we can't all of a sudden just add a wing to a hospital because we decided that we had savings within the 2017 bond program. Just
That makes
obviously
sense.
that is facetious, but just say.
You're not taking 2020 dollars and moving them forward to another bond. It stays within
Correct.
the scope and the language of that.
Within the
particular-
scope of that particular bond. Correct.
That's great.
And that 2017 bond was the first one at environmental health and safety, so that was a big, interesting bucket. I was on that advisory group. And so there's a lot of, room for opinion in terms of like, is everything completed?
Correct.
There's plumbing that is off and hasn't been replaced. There's, is all the lead paint actually stabilized? Like those sorts of things, security, all those things. I'm sure you're going through all of that.
We are. And the first thing we had to do was make sure that we reconciled the money. Right? We needed to make sure that we had reconciliation of the money and we understood what was encumbered and not encumbered. Because you could think that you have money, but it's encumbered in another contract. And so we've been working through that on each one of the bond programs. And so we will be doing financial reporting on a monthly basis to the Board of Education. So you guys will see this moving forward. Yeah, you guys will see this moving forward. It's one of the things we also present to the BAC. So.
Okay, so our next topic is just to give you an update in regards to seismic, and Jennifer's here to kind of talk through update in terms of where we're at.
Sure, so I'll just jump right in. So we have two comprehensive campus retrofits. Of course, all these projects are being funded by bond funds and potentially State of Oregon seismic rehabilitation grants. And as a reminder, you can apply for a campus for up to $2.5 million to help fund a seismic upgrade of a school building on a campus. So the comprehensive campus retrofits, Beverly Carrier Fernwood, the status of that project is also that design was awarded in the last board meeting. So that team is getting up and running. We also have an SRGP grant application that we're submitting this week. We're actually printing it today. It is due 5 p.m. This Friday in Salem. So that will get there in plenty of time. Rose City Park is the other full campus seismic retrofit. Notification of intent to award has been issued on all the rest of them. On the targeted retrofits, and again, a reminder of what the targeted retrofits are the high-risk building parts or high-risk building elements in schools for Ainsworth, Beach, Capitol Hill, Kelly, Richmond, Vernon, and Winter Haven. All of those notification of intent to award has been issued. It's gone through the RFP process. We're in the proposal stage, and then that will come to the board for official approval. Ainsworth, we are also working on a grant application for 2 building parts at Ainsworth, and that will also be submitted this week.
Questions?
I have questions around, I guess the assumption is that since we're planning to move forward with these sites, we've thought through consolidations and deferred maintenance and determined that it makes sense to be investing time and money into these buildings.
Yes. And I will say, so one of the things too is, because we do have a right sizing process kicking off here pretty soon. And if you remember, pieces of the criteria, not only seismic risk, but facility improvements and enrollment. And we're just thinking globally, right, in regards to enrollment. I think we have to, but I think that's as we know that the right sizing conversation is also working in parallel track to what we're also working on is a comprehensive plan for all the other schools, right? And I think that's the other piece too. We know that we don't have the funding for it right now, but I think as we just talked to, that whenever we can get funding, once we create that list in parallel with, we know the right sizing conversation is going to happen, we can immediately start allocating funds. And so this is kind of an initial step, right, for that first 100 million, which is we've allocated 75 million because we want to make sure we have enough in case issues arise, right? We don't want to say, well, you guys know it's always better to do it this way, and then it comes in and 75 million is where we're at, and we immediately then we could say, okay, there's 25 more million that we can start allocating to improve our seismic risk assessment across the district.
So this is based off of 75 million.
Correct.
And securing the grants, I would assume.
And securing the grants.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, so our next topic, Tom is going to lead us through this with PSEF.
Good evening, directors. Here's a quick Portland Clean Energy Fund Strategic Program 16 update. The slide is the grounding context for the PSEF because it explains why progress looks a little different from maybe some of our bond-funded work. PPS was awarded $16.9 million through the City of Portland's Climate Investment Plan under Strategic Program 16. Of that amount, $10 million is PAT agreed upon and can be used for thermal comfort improvements. Importantly, PSEF dollars are not advanced up front. Funds are released only after proposals are approved and then in phases. Each phase must be fully completed, invoiced, and reconciled before we can request the next tranche. That structure protects public dollars, but it means sequencing and timing matter. So the takeaway here is it's not a delay issue, it's a compliance and cash flow structure. Additionally, we did lose our amazing energy and sustainability senior program manager, Erin Pressberg, a few months ago, but we are in the late stages now of hiring a new person who actually leads this program. At our current state, we've completed technical energy audits at 12 schools, which is the foundational step required by this PSEF before any construction funding can be released. We have $700,000 in planned near-term projects focused on lighting and weatherization. These are eligible, lower-risk scopes that improve comfort and efficiency while we wait for larger construction approvals. In parallel, we've submitted thermal comfort design funding requests for Arleta Elementary, Arleta Annex, and Clark Elementary. That design work is what positions us to move quickly once capital funding is completely authorized. Looking ahead, 2026 work will focus on early design, long lead equipment procurement, and hazardous materials coordination, all of which are critical path items that reduce future construction risk and schedule impacts. All of this is ultimately a relationship with PAT. We're in lockstep with them on these, especially for that $10 million. The bottom line is PPS is progressing PSEF work within program requirements and coordinating closely with capital planning to ensure that projects are positioned for construction once each funding phase is approved. So we are coordinating all of our PSEF projects with our long-range capital plan as well. We are operating exactly within the funding rules, which is frustrating, but we are operating within those rules. Funding work that's allowable today, protecting the district from financial exposure and ensuring we can execute quickly when the next funding approvals come through. Concludes my briefing. Are there any questions?
Will we continue to apply to PSEF funding?
Absolutely.
So,
I was curious about energy auditing. Do you have several firms doing energy audits, or?
We do have 2 firms doing energy audits.
I was just curious about that. I've worked with one of them quite extensively.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's the same one, but I was just curious if that was kind of a competitive process.
Sure.
So with the 16.9 million, when that was awarded, don't we have to have the projects planned by June, or we lose those 2 years for PBS to come back with a plan?
We lose a year. We wouldn't lose a full year for 2 years.
So would we lose the money?
We wouldn't lose the money overall as long as we can still spend it within the 4-year program. Now, and then there's 2 different programs we're talking about here, because there's the student-led one, which is a 5-year, $10,000 a year, which is very much dependent. If we don't use it, we lose it. Whereas this one's a little different. It's a direct award. The $16.9 million is a different pot of funding than the student money, the $10,000 at each site.
Okay. So for the student money, we heard
Yes.
from one of our teachers was leading that at Roosevelt. What sort of process or do we have in place to make sure that we're capturing those projects and that money is being
So
spent?
previously, and I'm saying this before the end of the year, and like I said, that manager left, and so there has been lag, 100%. We haven't let it slide, but towards the middle and end of last year, we had a lot of engagement with the schools, a lot of ideas coming through. As you can imagine, when the money was awarded, everyone was very, very excited, and then we had to hedge some of that excitement with some constraints and operational constraints because everyone wanted to build things that would cause, I don't know, some other pest control and things like that, all stuff that has second and third order consequences. But we have narrowed down most of our sites. Approximately 90% of the projects are approved about, okay, this is what you want to do. Great. Is this a sustainability plan? So right now we're doing fine tuning on a lot of the student plans so that can be sustainable for over the next 4 years and beyond.
And then, so that's $10,000 every year for 5 years?
Yes, technically it's 15.
Okay,
10,000 for the project, 5,000 for a manager.
got it, okay. And then for the 10 million that's PAT restricted, have you met with PAT yet?
Personally, no. Unfortunately, PAT President Benny and I we're crossing streams every single time. We've been playing phone tag for about a week and a half now.
Okay.
So I have not met with them, but I know that they have been met with, but I cannot confirm exactly who that was and when that was, which is why I'm really excited to get a hold of President Bonilla.
I just want, yeah, that's great, because I just want to make sure, because we talked about a quarterly cadence
Sure.
in September, and we were hitting that cadence with our members. So that's great. And then so for Arleta and Clark, how were those two selected?
Based on thermal comfort and based on preventative maintenance issues with money that we could have meaningful projects done in a quickly amount of time, fast amount of time, so that we get some quick wins to help those sites.
Great.
I'm curious about the thermal piece. Is it windows? Is it insulation?
Unfortunately, PCEF, put the kibosh, excuse me, PCEF has denied Windows. That was one of our big initiatives. I'd love to tell you about a great study we did at Marysville that showed the impact of Windows.
Yes.
It was really impressive. So Windows, unfortunately, PCEF has said no longer. Originally it was.
Yeah.
Now it is not, which has forced us to change a lot of our plans. So
Sure.
PCEF rules are a moving target that we're constantly trying to keep
They
on
are.
straight.
So are they talking about heat pumps then and other shell improvement, or? Because it seems like windows would be.
We did a bunch of weather stripping.
Yeah.
Instead of the windows, we went to weather stripping like around the doors, so you know when the air's like flowing through.
Yeah.
So that's actually quite a bit, keeps a lot of that air on the
Yeah.
right side of the door.
Was it pressure tested? Were the buildings tested, audited before we decided to just put
There
strips
were
in there?
those, the technical energy audits, and so some of that work
Like
was
a
kind
blower
of
door.
based off of those audits.
We also did we had some recent sites that had pretty, I said it's recent way too many times, I apologize, but facility condition assessments that had come out of cycle. And so those sites gave us a lot more information about that.
Somebody, just because you mentioned windows, and if there ends up being money left in the 2017 bond, a lot of those old windows, they are lead paint, and they do generate lead dust, so I would suspect that could easily fall into that bucket in terms of stabilization, maybe kill two birds with one stone.
But a lot of them are painted shut because they've taken care of, addressed the lead issue by painting it
Right,
over.
now you can't open it.
Yeah.
So there's no dust generated if you can't open them.
But this
Then they're painted
is a
shut.
comfort problem.
Also a problem.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
John, good evening, directors. I'm super excited to share with you our procurement schedule. So this is for third-party services supporting across the 2025 bond programs. We work collaboratively with purchasing and contracting to develop 3 phases of procurement. Our first one was geotechnical services. So that was like our boilerplate establishment and requirements working with purchasing and contracting. And then we've divided the rest up between phase 2 and phase 3. The big takeaway is the board can expect contracts presented for approval in mid-April to mid-May at 3 different board meetings. Questions?
And these are all owner services that are necessary in order to execute all the programs that are in demand for the 2025 bond
My
program.
next question is, what exactly is it
Yeah,
for?
this is for us to do anything that has to do with the 2025 bond program outside of the modernizations. This is for, so, and even we're actually getting.
CBSE, athletic fields.
Well, CBSE is 2020.
Well,
So, but we're gonna use these consultants on them too. But yes, this is these are owner contracted consultants so that we can get land use permitting going, so that we can get bridging documents possibly together before we go out to bid for a full program. It's a way to have our programs in design and in permitting quicker while we're planning on the construction. So and this also, I just wanted to mention, this procurement schedule was shared with the Board of Education for your 13th meeting that we unfortunately did not present at, but this information was included in there. So if there's any questions, please submit them to Roseanne or any of the staff, and we're happy to get back to you guys on any questions that you might have.
So this is sort of like the other projects in the 2025.
Kind of, yes. I know. I hate to call it that because it's all, but it's huge. But these will help us expedite the schedule that are necessary for everything that happens within the 2025 bond program.
Is there anything on this grid that you're anticipating not hitting in January in terms of all of these RFPs? So the RFPs will be opened by the 29th. Is there any, are we tracking?
We're tracking right now. We've got a little bit of wiggle room on a couple of these, just because depending on how many interviews and things that we need to do. Director LaForte, you know what I mean? So we've got some wiggle room, but right now we're tracking and we're getting them into, along with everything else that goes into purchasing and contracting, I want to say that, we're getting these in there as well. So yes.
Yeah, and our milestone dates for the board meetings per phase, you can see that first one is April 14th, and then the 28th, and May 12th. Like those are we're still tracking those days. Even though we may be off a couple days on the RFP, it has not affected that projected date.
On the 30th, don't worry. In general, it sounds like we're tracking stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a precursor to talk a little bit about athletics, and I'm going to turn it over to Joanna.
Evening. So, kind of lead into this and follow on from that, right? So all of that work happens and nobody sees anything happening, right? We get our money. Why isn't it built? There's a lot that has to happen in between. So I know I talked to you all a few months ago, and I was really hoping for a March 1st, these lights would be standing in the air. That may not happen. So we have our permits into the city. I mean, we have our drawings submitted to the city for permit. They're in review. We're getting comments back. We're going back and forth. They are looking for some additional geotechnical information that we found out last week. We've expedited through purchasing and contracting the PO to get our geotech on board, and hopefully provide that update for the city. But that also means we have to go back to our subcontractor and have him confirm that his footings match that geotechnical report. We're in contact with Portland Power and PPL, Pacific Power and Light.
Pacific, yeah.
So, and they're waiting also on permitting to get their agreement together with us. The good news is their transformer is one that they have in stock, not a long lead item for that, so we can get that in. And then our own electrician, giving them more. A lot of this electrical work happens underground, so we're getting that specialty contractor who can do that underground work for us, and they're just a little harder to get down at the moment. All that being said, March 1st, we're reevaluating when we'll actually put the lights up. Because as you are probably aware, track and field has the largest number of athletes of anyone that goes on a field. So we're working with athletics department to determine if we try to do those lights now or later, and later being more like summer. I know there was some concern regarding lacrosse.
Yes.
And so we will work with athletics, athletics department, everybody's gonna put their heads together to try and find some solution for lacrosse.
Just to bring you two up to speed, lacrosse, there is no backup field right now. Marshall is under construction, and Delta Park, where lacrosse normally would have played, is not available. So we've got a situation now where we were working against this March 1st date, and there are 18 lacrosse games, and now those practices and games, which we were scheduled from 6 to 8, cannot happen unless, I would guess that our portable lights are one of the ideas.
That was not one of the ideas, no.
What are
We
some
haven't
of the
really
ideas?
gotten to the ideas. So this is late breaking news as of last week.
Right.
And only the short week. So, we're gonna put our heads together and figure out what's best for our athletes. Which direction to hit.
I have a question. Is there, temporary lights, everything's gonna cost money. Is there a way to, when you're working in an occupied space, do after hours work or weekend, second, third
We
shift?
kind of talked about that for this particular project.
Yeah, just
Because
curious,
it's a
like,
brand
what
new track and a brand new field, protecting it at all costs is really important.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to put steel plating down along it.
For
To
the
set each
trenching
of the
or?
poles.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, to set the light poles up, and so those are gonna piggyback around.
yeah.
So to try and we can't move them off. When we start construction, we need to
yes.
kind of just stay there
Needs to be there.
until we can get out of there.
Yeah.
Can't work a little bit and go away for practice.
Yeah.
Because of those plating.
Makes sense.
So in terms of sense of urgency, it's real. I know that the team is concerned about having to cancel their season. So I guess, Tom, I'm kind of asking you, are we in a situation where that may happen?
Of canceling lacrosse?
Yeah,
No.
They've asked me that question.
No.
Because they have to reschedule.
Marshall, Diallo, and Team and Odie, they are very confident they can have a place for lacrosse to play and practice.
And Marshall Haskins just texted me, he was supposed to be online, but he said Marshall campus is available.
Okay, so that work is done.
Spoke with Eric.
That's new information.
So, late breaking. I guess the bottom line is, we will find a place. And so, once we heard about this, we got together with athletics to figure this piece out. I mean, lacrosse, even though it's a club sport, there are kids, and so we'll definitely find a place to play.
And then for the geotechnical report, just because I was so close to this project, there is one that exists.
Correct. So it's we do not have to redo one. We just need to have on contract the geotechnical engineer. So he can go back to his old report and write a letter.
Got it.
Affirming. So, yes, the city is allowing us to just update. I know we did an updated letter in 19, so we're going to do an updated letter now.
Okay, that's great. Okay. So it sounds like we're looking at summer?
I would say probably.
I'm still.
I was told early on in my career never to give a date.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that meeting because my boss pulled me in and he took a roll of blueprints and he shut the door and I was like, uh-oh.
Wait, can
I
you
gave
say-
a date.
Yeah, it's hard, right? We give dates because we want to try and let people know what's going on.
Yeah.
But the downside to that is when we miss it, it hurts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody's heard March, so.
Well,
Okay,
it's been a long week. It's December and March, and there have been a lot of delays, so I don't have a problem with dates, goals at all.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so the next part of our update is all the other 2025 projects. So there are quite a few of them. There's some related to modernization. There's some related to athletic hubs. There are baseball and softball field projects. So All of these require design, and many of them require land use through the city. So as TJ said, we've got the RFPs out for design teams right now. As soon as those come back, then we can figure out which design teams are on which projects. We're also trying to really refine our land use and streamline it, right? So we can begin kind of that land use process at that time as well. So just
I want to explain
Yeah.
that a little bit better if you don't mind. So the procurements that we are doing are pool procurements. And so what we're doing is we're qualifying all of our architects, engineers, geotechnical, any material testing, all of those agencies at once, and then we are having that gives us a selection pool that we then can divvy out the work. So we're running the procurements on a program basis instead of a scope of work by scope of work by scope of work basis. That means that we will have multiple projects within the 2025 bond program in design and engineering to then execute construction instead of picking something, figuring it all out, and then having to do the design and then the construction at the same time. So what was happening was procurement was being done on a project by project or scope of work by scope of work basis, not on a programmatic basis. So I just wanted to explain that to you so you understood what Joanna meant when she said, once that we can award them, that's what that means. And we're going to be doing it on a campus by campus basis. So you're going to be able to see from a campus what's being done at that campus and who's assigned to it and what projects from the 2025 bond program will be at what that campus is getting from the 2025 bond program. We have a lot of work in place. None of it's flashy. None of it's shovels in the ground, but we've got a lot of work going on by the team behind the scenes for sure.
I love that you've reconsidered the procurement process, and just because you're stacking things up. Yeah, I really like that reconsideration of like having a pool that you can draw from, so the projects are not experiencing gaps in the schedule. I think that's really clever, and I know we'll see the benefits as we get multiple projects going at the same time.
So,
wanted to explain
no,
that a
that's
little bit.
fine, that's perfect, and it kind of wraps
Sarah.
back around, right? So when people are like, bond's here, let's go build it.
Yeah.
Part of our building process, right, is all that stuff nobody can see. And so you won't see the golden shovels for a while, and it's typically like on these athletic projects, I'm not even talking about modernizations, right? It's 12 to 18 months before we can start with actual physical construction.
That's on your own land, right?
It's on your own land.
That is without land acquisition.
Correct. That's right. That's on your own piece of property.
So the land use though, if it's a field that's already there.
If it's a field that's already, so that's why I say many of our athletic projects.
But the
So
newer ones need land.
If
need
we
land
are
use review.
replacing an existing turf field, so like what we did at Grant, that is there's no permit needed for that because we're taking that up and we're just replacing the same material down.
So if we're replacing grass, does that require a land use permit?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. So I think that's happening.
It's not a change.
And so.
And even with, let's say, expanding of the grandstands, you're adding people. So again, land use. Like it's
And
the
yeah,
same
there's
thing,
engineering
just getting
involved.
slightly bigger. If you shift the field 4 inches because you want to put something here, land use. So.
Could you provide a list of all of the projects, like all bond athletic projects? Could you maybe follow up before the end of the week and just send us a list of like what those projects are and what RFPs have been sent out?
Yeah, so
No dates.
So no RFPs for the specific, I shouldn't say no. There are a couple of.
Do you want to know what projects are in the in the 2025 bond for athletics?
I mean, I know what they are. I just want to make sure they're okay because I'm wondering, I'm thinking about Powell Park, which is a little bit.
Powell Park still. So we have Grant High School lights, Grant High School seating, Roosevelt High School turf, softball field turf, Roosevelt High School grants. These are not in order of any. I just realized I'm going to read this off. These are not in order of any type of
Writing it
priority.
Yeah.
I'm literally just reading. Roosevelt Grandstand, West Sylvan Middle School Field, Marshall Hub Field and Lights, Jackson Hub Field and Lights, Franklin Upper Fields, Jefferson Field, and Powell Park. So we're tracking all of them, and I believe that this was presented back at the either FIO meeting in September and/or I could be wrong on that, but I think it was September. Yeah, and somewhat of a planning time. There was somewhat of a planning timeline, land use timeline, and then construction timeline associated with that.
So for grant, I brought this up too, that, there's a whole master plan that I know we need to reconnect. To see like everything that's in there, because there are still things like, there's no scoreboard, there's no bathrooms, there's no ticketing, there's no fence. Are all of those things included, or do we need to kind of regroup on that piece?
We probably need to regroup because the way it's defined is grant lights and grant seating. I'm looking at a document here. And so, there's money associated with those things and how it's called out. So we probably need to look at that and see how that ultimately, that overall scope of work gets defined.
Because what will end up is another.
And we don't want that to happen. Right.
Was Whitaker in there at one point? Seems like.
It's in the long range facilities plan.
That was long range.
I was going to say, not in the 2025, not in the athletics. I'm not saying it's not, but not for the athletics portion of the 2025 bond.
It had been
was in a-
previously discussed,
was
but
in a-
it's not in the 25.
Okay, that brings us to our end of our presentation.
Great.
Guys have any other questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. So if there, and I'll send out an email as well, if you have anything that you want to add to the next agenda, feel free to say so now or shoot me a note. I've not scheduled the next agenda study meeting, but actually it's about a week. Okay, so our next meeting of Facilities Improvement Oversight Committee is February 9th. Wow, that's soon. How'd that happen?
Yeah, it's like in a week.
So, yeah, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.